Before we descend into the shadows of the West Bank and the silent wars fought behind computer screens, take a moment to subscribe to the channel. We are exposing the operations that governments deny and the machinery of power that operates in perpetual shadow. Hit the notification bell. The next buried operation is already unfolding somewhere, waiting to be revealed. Now, let's go back to 2011. The air conditioning in the Kiryat, the IDF's headquarters in central Tel Aviv, always hummed at a frequency that seemed designed to induce migraines. It was a sterile, low-grade vibration that burrowed into the skull, a constant reminder that you were buried beneath layers of reinforced concrete, shielding the state's most sensitive nervous system. For Noah, a senior analyst in Unit 8200 who had been effectively borrowed by Mossad's cyber division, the hum was usually white noise. She lived in the data streams. She saw the world not in streets and buildings, but in packets of information, encrypted handshakes, and the invisible architecture of the internet. But on this Tuesday morning in November, the hum felt deafening because the screen in front of her had just done something impossible. It went black. Not a power failure. The monitors in the command center were still glowing with the dull amber and green of operational maps. Her terminal, however, had simply ceased to display the active tracking grid of Operation Blue Sky. "System glitch," muttered David, her shift commander, leaning over her shoulder with a cup of lukewarm instant coffee. "Restart the interface." Noah didn't answer. Her fingers flew across the mechanical keyboard, bypassing the graphical interface and diving straight into the command line. She wasn't looking for a glitch. She was looking for a ghost. The code cascaded down the screen, a waterfall of white text on black. "It's not a glitch," Noah whispered, her voice tight. "Someone is inside the perimeter. They aren't just looking, David. They are extracting." The room, usually a buzz of low-level chatter and the clacking of keys, fell into a heavy, suffocating silence. In the intelligence world, an extraction is the nightmare scenario. It means the enemy isn't just knocking on the door. They are in the living room, taking the family photos off the wall. "Target?" David asked, placing his coffee down. His demeanor shifted instantly from bored bureaucrat to field officer. "Personnel files," Noah said, the color draining from her face. "Specifically the cover identities for the Nablus sector. The deep cover assets." This was catastrophic. The Nablus sector was a powder keg. Agents there were living on a razor's edge, embedding themselves within hostile factions, posing as merchants, students, or laborers. If their identities were compromised, if their real names were matched to their faces, they wouldn't just be arrested, they would disappear. "Cut the line," David ordered. "Sever the external connection. Now." "I can't," Noah replied, her hands trembling slightly. "He's routed the traffic through a polymorphic worm. If I sever the connection, the malware is programmed to dump the data onto the public web instantly. He's holding a dead man's switch." This was a hostage situation, but there were no negotiators, and the hostages were digital packets of information that determined the survival of human beings. "Who is doing this?" David demanded, grabbing the secure phone to alert the director. Noah stared at the bottom of her screen. The hacker hadn't just stolen the data. He had left a signature, a small pixelated image of a skeleton key embedded in the code, followed by a string of Arabic poetry. "I am the wind that enters through the cracks you forgot to seal." "I know him," Noah said, a cold realization settling in her stomach. "We've been chasing a phantom for 2 years. He goes by the handle, the architect. But intelligence suggests his name is Walid al-Masri. He's not in Iran, he's not in Russia." She pointed to the geolocated trace bouncing off 3 proxy servers before terminating in a dense urban grid. "He's in the West Bank, Ramallah. He's dismantling our network from an internet cafe less than 20 kilometers from where we sit." The audacity was staggering. Most cyber warfare came from state actors, bunkers in Tehran or office blocks in Beijing. This was different. This was asymmetrical warfare perfected. One man, a laptop, and a connection speed fast enough to bring the most sophisticated intelligence agency in the Middle East to its knees. "We can't shut him down remotely without burning the files," Noah said, turning to David. "We need physical access. We need to stop his fingers from hitting enter." David nodded, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. This wasn't a job for firewalls or encryption keys anymore. This was a kinetic problem. "Get me Caesarea," David said into the phone, referring to the Mossad's Special Operations Division. "We need a team in Ramallah tonight. We don't just want the computer, we want the man." Ramallah is a city of contradictions. It is the administrative capital of the Palestinian Authority, a place where luxury SUVs navigate narrow streets alongside donkey carts, where high-end cafes serving espresso sit next to traditional markets selling olive oil and thyme. It is a city of hills, limestone buildings glowing gold in the sunset, and an undercurrent of tension that never truly dissipates. Walid al-Masri sat in the corner of the Layali Internet Cafe, a dimly lit establishment near the Manara Square. To the casual observer, he was unremarkable. Late 20s, thinning hair, wearing a faded leather jacket and smoking cheap cigarettes. He looked like any other unemployed university graduate, of which there were thousands in the West Bank, killing time and waiting for a future that refused to arrive. But Walid was not waiting. He was working. On the screen in front of him, the progress bar moved agonizingly slow. 88%. He took a drag from his cigarette, the smoke curling up toward the yellowed ceiling fan. He wasn't doing this for money, though he had been offered plenty by handlers in Damascus and Beirut. He wasn't even doing it strictly for ideology, though he despised the occupation. He was doing it for the challenge. He was doing it because they said the Israeli firewall was impenetrable, and Walid took that as a personal insult. Walid was a prodigy of the digital age. Self-taught on discarded computers his uncle brought back from construction jobs in Tel Aviv. He had learned code before he learned English. He understood the architecture of networks better than he understood human relationships. To him, the conflict wasn't about land or borders. It was about access. It was about who controlled the flow of information. "Hey Walid," the cafe owner, a heavy-set man named Abu Khalil, shouted from the counter. "Your time is almost up. You want another hour?" Walid didn't look up. "Put it on my tab, Abu Khalil. I'm almost done with this project." "You and your projects," Abu Khalil grumbled. But he let the clock run. He liked Walid. The boy was quiet, respectful, and occasionally fixed the cafe's router when it crashed. He had no idea that the project Walid was working on was currently triggering a code red in the Israeli intelligence community. The screen ticked to 92%. Walid's heart rate remained steady. He had routed his connection through servers in Estonia, Brazil, and Singapore. He was invisible. Or so he believed. He didn't know that the signature he left, the poetry, was a mistake born of ego. He wanted them to know it was him. He wanted the faceless analysts in Tel Aviv to know that a boy from the refugee camps had outsmarted them. Hubris is the fatal flaw of every hacker. Walid minimized the extraction window and opened a chat interface. It was a secure, encrypted channel he used to communicate with his broker, a man in Lebanon who acted as the middleman for the information Walid stole. "Package is almost ready. High value. Names, locations, photos. Confirm quality. Buyers are skeptical. Send them the sample I gave you. The agent in Nablus, the one pretending to be a falafel vendor." Walid smiled. He held the power of life and elimination in his fingertips. It was an intoxicating feeling, far more potent than the cheap caffeine he was drinking. He felt like a god in a leather jacket. But gods in Ramallah are vulnerable to earthly interventions. 3 blocks away, a white Ford Transit van with Palestinian license plates was navigating the evening traffic. Inside, the air was thick with tension and the smell of stale tobacco. 4 men sat in the back. They were dressed in local clothing, jeans, t-shirts, keffiyehs draped loosely around their necks. They hadn't shaved in days. They looked like laborers returning from a day's work. They were not laborers. "Target is static," the team leader, Aitan, said into his earpiece. Aitan was a veteran of the Yashas unit, specialized in undercover work. He spoke Arabic with a perfect Hebron accent, knew the Quran better than most imams, and could strip a Glock 19 in the dark. "He's at the cafe. We have a 20-minute window before the area gets crowded for the evening prayers." "Copy that," came the voice of the controller in Tel Aviv. "Remember the parameters. No permanent damage. We need the encryption key he holds in his head." If he's neutralized, the data dumps automatically. You have to take him intact." "Understood," Aitan replied. He looked at his men. "No guns unless absolute emergency. We use sedatives. Soft entry, hard exit. We grab him, throw him in the van, and we are gone before anyone realizes the architect has left the building." The van turned the corner, the headlights sweeping across the entrance of the internet cafe. Aitan checked his watch. 17:42. "Showtime," he whispered. Walid watched the progress bar hit 96%. He reached for his cigarettes, shaking the pack. Empty. He sighed, annoyed. He would have to go to the kiosk next door. He glanced at the screen. 2 minutes remaining. Plenty of time to grab a pack of Royals. He stood up, stretching his back. He walked out of the cafe, stepping into the cool evening air of Ramallah. The street was busy. Horns honked, vendors shouted prices for roasted nuts. Walid turned left, toward the kiosk. He didn't notice the white van idling by the curb. He didn't see the side door slide open just an inch. He was thinking about the encryption key, reciting it in his head to ensure he never forgot it. He took 3 steps. A hand shot out from the darkness of the van, grabbing his collar. Another hand clamped over his mouth, holding a rag soaked in a chemical compound that smelled faintly of almonds and hospitals. Walid tried to scream, but the sound died in his throat. His legs were kicked out from under him. The world tilted sideways. He was dragged into the metal belly of the vehicle. The door slammed shut. The street continued its chaotic rhythm. The vendor sold his nuts. The cars honked. Nobody noticed that the ghost of Ramallah had just become a ghost for real. The Ford Transit sped away from Manara Square, merging aggressively into the traffic heading toward the outskirts of the city. Inside, the environment was a masterclass in controlled chaos. Walid was on the floor, his hands zip-tied behind his back, a black hood pulled over his head. He wasn't fully unconscious. The dose on the rag had been calibrated to stun, not sedate deeply, because they needed him lucid enough to talk eventually. Aitan sat on a bench seat, watching the road through the windshield while monitoring the rear. "Status?" he barked. "Target secured. Pulses high, 140. "He's terrified," said one of the operatives, a medic named Yoni, who was monitoring Walid's vitals. "Good. Fear keeps him awake," Aitan said. He tapped his earpiece. "Command, we have the package. We are moving to Extraction Point Alpha, but we have a problem." The laptop remained in the cafe. There was a pause on the line. Then Noah's voice cut through, sharp and anxious. "Aitan, if the download completes on that machine, it might auto-send. You need to stop that terminal." Aitan cursed silently. "We are already 5 blocks away. We can't go back. It's too hot. If we turn around, we risk the package and the team." "Walid has a remote kill switch," Noah insisted. "Intel says he operates with paranoia. He likely has a way to cancel the transfer from his phone. Check his pockets." Yoni rifled through Walid's jacket. He pulled out a battered Nokia and a newer smartphone, a BlackBerry. "Got a phone. Wake him up," Aitan ordered. "Fully." Yoni uncapped a smelling salt vial and waved it under Walid's hood. The hacker gasped, his body jerking against the restraints. He began to shout in Arabic, muffled by the hood. "Quiet!" Aitan switched to Arabic, his voice dropping to a menacing, guttural growl. "Listen to me, Walid. You are in very deep water. The only way you breathe air again is if you listen." He ripped the hood off. Walid blinked in the dim light of the van. He saw 4 men, faces covered in balaclavas. He didn't need to ask who they were. The efficiency, the Hebrew slang he heard them whisper before switching to Arabic, he knew. "Mossad." "You," Walid stammered, his bravado from the cafe evaporating instantly. "You can't take me. The authority, the police." "The authority doesn't know you exist right now," Aitan said, leaning close. He held up the BlackBerry. "The download at the cafe. You need to stop it." Walid's eyes widened. He tried to look defiant, but his lip trembled. "Or what? You'll kill me?" "No," Aitan said calmly. "We don't kill hackers. It's a waste of talent. But we do destroy reputations. If that data goes out, Walid, do you know what happens?" We release your financial records. We show Hamas and the Fatah leadership that you've been skimming off their accounts for years. We show them the consulting fees you took from brokers in Europe. It was a bluff, partially. They knew Walid was corrupt, but they didn't have the full proof yet. But Walid didn't know what they knew. I can't stop it, Walid lied. Don't lie to me, Eitan said, pulling a specialized tablet from his vest. Noah, talk to him. He put the tablet on speaker. Noah's voice filled the van, distorted but clear. Walid, the code you wrote uses a dual authentication handshake. If the connection drops without a verification signal from your mobile, it dumps the data. But if you send a abort code, it wipes the cache. Send the code. Walid stared at the phone Eitan held. If I wipe it, I lose my leverage. You'll dispose of me. If you don't wipe it, Eitan said, we drop you off in the middle of the Balata refugee camp with a sign around your neck that says collaborator. And we leave your phone with the chat logs unlocked. The threat was visceral. Being labeled a collaborator in the West Bank was a death sentence, far more certain and brutal than anything the Israelis would do. It meant mob justice. Walid swallowed hard. He looked at the phone. The code, it's a text message to my own number, 0 null exit. Eitan didn't trust him. He handed the phone to Walid, keeping a firm grip on the device. Type it. One wrong digit and we take the scenic route to Balata. Walid's thumbs shook as he pressed the keys. He hit send. Seconds passed. The tension in the van was physical, a heavy weight pressing on everyone's chest. Noah? Eitan asked. Wait. Static crackled. Checking the network activity. Traffic has spiked. Wait, it's gone. The stream flatlined. He wiped it. The cache is deleted. A collective breath was released in the van. The immediate crisis was averted. The identities of 35 deep cover agents were safe for now. But the night was far from over. They were still deep in hostile territory, carrying a high-value target who was technically a citizen of the Palestinian Authority. Getting him across the Green Line into Israel for formal arrest was the standard procedure, but the road ahead was blocked. Commander, the driver, a quiet man named Avi, spoke up. Checkpoint Kalandia is reporting a riot. Burning tires, rocks. It's a no-go. We can't cross there. What about Route 443? Blocked. There's a VIP movement, maybe the PA president. The road is shut down by their security. Eitan frowned. They were boxed in. They had the target, but they had nowhere to go. And keeping Walid in the van indefinitely was dangerous. Every minute they spent in Ramallah increased the chance of exposure. We need a safe house, Eitan said. We go to ground. Plan B. Walid looked up, sweat beading on his forehead. Where are you taking me? Eitan looked at the hacker, a strange mix of pity and contempt in his eyes. We're going to a place where the reception is very poor, Walid. The safe house was not a house. It was an abandoned agricultural structure on the edge of a hillside village north of Ramallah, an area technically under Israeli security control, Area C, but dangerously isolated. It was a relic of a bygone era, stone walls crumbling, roof partially caved in, smelling of goat manure and dry earth. The team moved quickly. They dragged Walid inside, securing the rusty iron door. The windows were mere slits, offering tactical views of the approach road but letting in little light. They switched to night vision goggles and red light torches to maintain light discipline. Eitan pushed Walid onto a wooden crate. Sit. Walid sat, shivering. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by the cold, biting wind coming through the cracks in the stone. I want a lawyer, he mumbled. I am a political prisoner. You are a thief, Eitan corrected him, checking his weapon. And right now, you aren't even a prisoner. You are baggage we are trying to figure out how to transport. The team established a perimeter. Avi took the roof, setting up a spotting scope. Yoni monitored the radio frequencies, listening for Palestinian police chatter. It's getting loud out there, Yoni reported. The riot at Kalandia is spreading. There are reports of shots fired near Sagat. The whole sector is heating up. If we try to move a covert vehicle through this, we'll be spotted. The plates on the van are good, but not riot-proof. Eitan paced the small room. The mission had been snatch and grab. It was turning into siege and survive. He looked at Walid. The hacker was the source of the problem, but he was also a gold mine. The encryption key in his head was valuable, but the data on his laptop, which was still back at the cafe, was lost. However, Walid was the database. He knew the networks, the buyers, the other hackers targeting Israel. Interrogate him now, Eitan decided. We might not get him to Tel Aviv tonight. We need the actionable intel immediately. If he has other back doors open, we need to close them. Eitan sat across from Walid. He didn't use violence. The Mossad doctrine for this type of asset was psychological dismantling. Walid, Eitan started, offering him a cigarette. It was a peace offering, a classic move to build a fragile rapport. You're smart. You built a polymorphic worm that bypassed 8200's perimeter. That's impressive. Walid took the cigarette with his bound hands, leaning forward for the light Eitan offered. He inhaled deeply. Flattery worked on him. It wasn't just polymorphic. It used a steganographic layer. Even if you saw the data leaving, it looked like JPEG images of cats. Clever, Eitan nodded. But who gave you the target list? You didn't find those names yourself. Someone fed you the sector parameters. Walid hesitated. This was the line. Crossing it meant betraying his handlers, the real dangerous men. I found it myself. I scanned the government servers. Impossible, Eitan said softly. Those servers are air-gapped. Someone put a thumb drive in a computer in Nablus or Jenin, someone on the inside. You were just the retrieval mechanism. Who is the insider? Walid stayed silent. We can stay here all night, Eitan said, but the heater in the van is off. It gets very cold in these hills. And I imagine your broker in Lebanon is already wondering why you went silent. Do you think they will send a rescue party or a cleaning crew? Walid's eyes flickered. He knew the answer. If the broker thought Walid was compromised, he was a liability. His name is the Falcon, Walid whispered. He works in the coordination office. He handles the permits for entry into Israel. Eitan glanced at Yoni. Verify. Yoni typed into his field computer, accessing the secure database via satellite link. We have a codename Falcon flagged in the system, a mid-level clerk in the civil administration. Access to personnel files? Possible. See? Eitan said to Walid. Cooperation is easy. Now tell me about the other buyers. Who else wanted the list? Iranians, Walid said. They offered double, but they wanted me to plant a logic bomb too, to shut down the water grid in Haifa. Eitan's jaw tightened. Water. That was a red line. Targeting infrastructure was an act of war. Did you? No. Walid shook his head rapidly. I'm a nationalist, not a mass murderer. I didn't take the Iranian deal. Good for you, Eitan said dryly. You have some ethics. That might save you. Suddenly, Avi's voice came from the roof, urgent and sharp. Movement. 2 vehicles, pickup trucks, coming up the dirt road, no lights. Eitan stood up instantly, extinguishing his light. Identify. Armed men in the back. Not uniformed. Looks like Tanzim or local militia. They're sweeping the area. They had been tracked. Maybe someone saw the snatch at the cafe. Maybe the van had been spotted. Prepare for contact, Eitan whispered. But do not engage unless breached. We are ghosts. Ghosts don't shoot. The silence in the stone house was absolute, save for the wind whistling through the cracks. Eitan moved to the window slit, peering out through his night vision monocular. The 2 pickup trucks had stopped about 200 meters down the slope. Eitan could see the heat signatures of men jumping out. 6, maybe 8 armed figures. They were moving tactically, spreading out. This wasn't a random patrol. They were hunting. They know we're here, Eitan whispered to the team. Someone talked. Maybe the internet cafe owner saw the van plates. Walid was shaking violently now. It's the Tanzim, he hissed. If they find me with you, they won't ask questions. They'll lynch us all. Shut up, Eitan commanded, but not unkindly. He needed the hacker calm. Options? Eitan asked his team. We can't drive out, Avi said from the roof. They're blocking the only road. If we go off-road, the van will get stuck in the wadi. We can call for air support, Yoni suggested. A drone buzz, maybe a helicopter extraction. Too noisy, Eitan shook his head. Helicopters bring press brings politics. We need to handle this quietly. Aiton looked at the terrain map on his tablet. Behind the house, the hill dropped steeply into a rocky ravine. It was treacherous footing, especially in the dark, but it led away from the road, towards a settlement bypass road about 3 kilometers away. "We walk," Aiton said. "We leave the van. We take the package and we hump it out on foot. With him." Yoni gestured to Walid, who looked like he had never walked 3 kilometers on paved road, let alone a rocky ravine at night. "He walks or we carry him," Aiton said. "Gear up, sanitize the van, leave nothing intel sensitive." The team moved with practiced efficiency. They wiped the vehicle, took their packs, and hoisted Walid to his feet. "Listen to me," Aiton told Walid, gripping his shoulder. "We are going for a hike. If you make a sound, if you trip and cry out, I will have to put you to sleep. And carrying you will make me very grumpy. Do you understand?" Walid nodded. They slipped out the back of the structure, sliding down the loose scree of the slope. The night was cold, the air crisp with the scent of wild thyme. Behind them, they heard shouts. The militia had reached the house. "They found the van," Avi whispered. A burst of gunfire echoed through the valley. The militia was shooting at the empty house, suppressing a target that wasn't there. "Move," Aiton signaled. They descended into the wadi. The terrain was brutal. Jagged rocks, thorny bushes that tore at their clothes. Walid stumbled constantly, his city shoes useless on the terrain. Each time, an operative caught him, hauling him up, pushing him forward. For an hour, they moved in silence, a strange procession of shadows. The sounds of the search faded behind them, but Aiton knew they weren't safe. The militia would find their tracks. They had trackers who knew these hills as well as the Israelis. "Commander," Yoni whispered, checking the GPS. "We're 2 clicks from the extraction point, but Walid is failing. His heart rate is spiking again. He's hyperventilating." Aiton signaled a halt. He knelt beside Walid. The hacker was gasping for air, clutching his chest. "Panic attack," Yoni diagnosed. "He's not built for this." I can't," Walid wheezed. "Leave me. Just leave me here." Aiton looked at the hacker. Leaving him was an option. But leaving him meant he would be found by the Tanzim. They would torture him, find out what he told the Israelis, and then kill him as a traitor. Or worse, they would realize his value and sell him to the Iranians themselves. "No," Aiton said. "We don't leave baggage." He looked up at the hillside. They were near a small service road used by the electric company to service the high-voltage pylons running through the West Bank. A thought occurred to Aiton. A cruel, pragmatic thought. They couldn't get him to Israel. The roads were blocked, the extraction was compromised, and carrying him was slowing them down to the point where the whole team was at risk. They had the immediate intel, the name of the insider, the deletion of the data. Walid was physically exhausted and psychologically broken. If they dragged him to Israel, he goes to prison. He becomes a cause célèbre. Lawyers, human rights organizations, a trial. He becomes a hero in prison. But what if they didn't take him? "Yoni," Aiton said, a hard edge in his voice. "Do we have the restraints? The heavy-duty plastic cuffs?" "Yes." "Why?" Aiton pointed to a wooden power pole about 50 meters up the embankment, next to the service road. It was isolated, visible from the main road in the morning, but lonely now. "New plan," Aiton said. "We aren't extracting him, we are neutralizing him." Walid's eyes widened in terror. "You said no killing." "I'm not going to kill you," Aiton said, standing up. "I'm going to save your life, Walid. If I take you to Israel, you are a hero to your people. If I leave you here, found by the militia, you are a suspect. But if I leave you here, explicitly marked as a failure, you are nothing." Aiton turned to his team. "We tie him to the pole. We leave him for the locals to find in the morning. But we leave him with a gift." "What gift?" Avi asked. Aiton reached into his pouch and pulled out a flash drive. It was a decoy drive, one they used for counterintelligence. It contained dummy files, but they looked like payment records from Mossad to various Palestinian assets. "We hang this around his neck," Aiton said. "When they find him, they won't think he's a hero who was kidnapped. They'll think he's a double agent we abandoned because he was useless." It was a destruction of character more potent than a bullet. It ensured Walid would never touch a keyboard for the resistance again. He would spend the rest of his life trying to prove he wasn't a traitor. "Get him up," Eitan ordered. The wind on the ridge was fiercer, whipping the dry grass around their boots. They dragged Walid to the base of the wooden power pole. It was an old creosote-soaked beam, carrying lines that powered both settlements and Palestinian villages, an irony of infrastructure that defined the region. Walid was weeping now, not out of pain, but out of a dawning realization of what was happening. He wasn't being martyred, he was being discarded. "Please," Walid begged, "take me to prison, Ashkelon, Ophir, anywhere. Don't leave me here like this." "You wanted to be a player, Walid," Eitan said, tightening the heavy plastic zip ties around Walid's torso, securing him firmly to the wood. "Players pay the price." They secured his hands behind the pole. They secured his ankles. He was standing, bound tight, facing the dirt road where the morning patrol of the Palestinian police, or the Tanzim, would inevitably pass. Yoni checked the knots. "He's not going anywhere. Circulation is okay. He won't lose the hands, just his dignity." Eitan took the flash drive. He threaded it onto a piece of paracord and hung it around Walid's neck. The silver metal glinted in the moonlight against Walid's black shirt. "What is that?" Walid whispered. "Insurance," Eitan said. "It contains a very interesting, completely fabricated ledger of payments. Consulting fees paid to the architect from a Tel Aviv bank account." "That's a lie," Walid shouted, struggling against the bonds. "They'll kill me." "Maybe," Eitan shrugged. "Or maybe they'll just beat you and throw you in a damp cell in Jericho for 20 years. Either way, you aren't hacking our servers anymore. And you certainly aren't a hero." Eitan leaned in close, his face inches from Walid's. "You wanted to enter through the cracks, remember? I am the wind. Well, Walid, now you are just a man tied to a stick in the wind. Enjoy the view." Eitan stepped back. He signaled his team. "Let's move. We have a 3-click hump to the bypass road. Our ride is waiting." "Wait!" Walid screamed, his voice carrying over the valley. "Don't leave me. Take me with you." The Mossad team didn't look back. They melted into the darkness of the wadi, moving silent and swift, professional shadows returning to the void. Walid was left alone. The wind howled. The wooden pole creaked. Far away, the lights of Jerusalem glowed on the horizon, a fortress he had tried to breach, and which had simply swatted him away like a fly. He was the greatest hacker in Palestine, the architect, the digital warrior. And now he was just a scarecrow in the dark, waiting for the dawn to bring his ruin.